Hi, my name is Brian Docherty. When we reported an elite paedophile network which contains senior members of the Scottish clergy, they were terrified of us exposing this information. Catholic clergy in Scotland slandered me in order to discredit anything I had to say, and by attacking us to the point where a priest in Ireland sent us to a hitman, from which, with the grace of God, we emerged alive. Since then, the clergy have learned that we have evidence of another very powerful person's involvement in this paedophile network, and senior clergy have spent months trying to obtain this information by using church contacts who have been pretending to help us. I now have some questions for the Bishop of Derry, Donald McKeown. Bishop McKeown, John Harnett, a friend of yours, informed me that you paid for a full service for his BMW, not to mention 4 new tyres. Was this payment given to him for his wife putting me and my wife up for 2 weeks in a church-owned house which they claimed was their home, while they attempted to extract information from us? John Harnett and his wife poisoned me and my wife by putting drugs in our tea and coffee. This was done in an attempt to gather information and stop us fighting to expose the truth. The church has a history of using poison. Was this done at your behest? John's wife Yvonne had a vision that if we just did what the church wanted, we would get our children back. Clearly this vision was not inspired by the Holy Spirit. Was this vision inspired by you? Harnett was very keen that we stopped acting and fighting to get our children back, taken from us for reporting this elite paedophile ring. Was this the reason why we were constantly drugged by your good friend John Harnett? John Harnett was very keen for us to give him copies of all our information. Was this information to be passed to you? And if so, for what purpose? Harnett was very keen for us to go to confession to a Father Columba, a Franciscan priest based in Derry. Was this ordered by you in another cynical attempt to extract information? Your friend Robert Cassidy urged me and my wife to also meet with Father Columba. A few days later, a man we had never met before sat beside me in church and also urged me to go and see Father Columba. Is Father Columba the new Padre Pio, or was all this orchestrated at your instructions? Now, Bishop, God's commandments are to love one another, including our enemies, and one of the spiritual works of mercy is to admonish sinners. Father Columba told us that it was okay to hate our enemies, but not to criticise them. Would you agree that this is the opposite of Christ's teachings? John and Yvonne Harnett were very keen for us to go to Ard Friday after we refused to return to Father Columba for, quotes, spiritual direction. Was this visit to Ard Friday also instructed by you? John Harnett told me he was abused as a boy by a priest in the hope that I would disclose this too, and he was disappointed to discover that this had not happened to me. Why was the Catholic Church, or why did the Catholic Church hope to label me as a victim of abuse? Can the clergy be so wicked as to think that this would discredit my exposing their involvement in an elite paedophile network? You name the cult, John Harnett subscribed to it. House of Prayer, Medjugorje and others. Does the Catholic Church endorse all money-making cults, regardless of their lack of genuine spiritual merit? Why are you, Bishop, repeatedly using church flunkies in the Diocese of Derry in an attempt to manipulate and control me and my wife? Given that the Church has turned its back on my family when we were repeatedly attacked for reporting an elite paedophile network containing members of the clergy, why did the Church become desperate to house us upon realising we had significant information which can be used by them for blackmail purposes? Why do you think, Bishop, after we had lent our car to John Harnett, who requested it for the weekend, that when he returned the car to us, it was wired with a tracking device and audio equipment? Why do you think, Bishop, that your close friend John Harnett was desperate to find out if my wife and I had financial problems, and for what purpose did he seek this information? Why do you think, Bishop, that John Harnett and Robert Castey, two men who report to you, were keen for me to go to Father Clumber of Derry in your diocese for confession and so-called spiritual direction? Was the spiritual direction, quotes, to make the right decisions, and confession not a shameful misuse of the church sacraments and confidentiality to gain profitable information? After John Harnett arranged for us to meet Father Clumber, why did Father Clumber receive a new people carrier which was delivered just as my wife and I were leaving his chapel house? Would you admit, Bishop, that your role in the manipulation and attempt to control me and my wife could not be further from the example of Christ if you tried? I can see now why many of the priests in your diocese had a campaign called Stop Donald to prevent you from becoming the bishop.